Welcome back, viewers, to the continuation of my top 10 favorite Godzilla films of all time. This next movie was one that people really enjoyed because it was the first time in a while that Godzilla was a villain again and made scary. Godzilla 1985, also known as The Return of Godzilla. This was the 16th film in the franchise and the first reboot for the series. This movie came after a 10-year hiatus for the series. This film began the Heisei series of films, which ignored all Showa films with the exception of the first movie, which this film takes place 30 years after. This movie opens with a vessel out at sea which has been caught in a terrible rainstorm. A nearby island starts to fall apart when a giant monster awakens and attacks the boat. The very next day, a newspaper reporter just happens to be sailing his boat and discovers the shipwrecked vessel. Upon boarding, he discovers that the entire crew is dead, with the exception of one lone survivor. As the reporter tries to wake this petrified survivor, he is attacked by a giant sea louse. He struggles with it and nearly dies, but is saved by the survivor. The two are then rescued and they return to Tokyo. The survivor tells his story and goes through photographs and is able to identify the monster that attacked his ship was Godzilla. The news is kept from the public, however, as there is no actual concrete evidence to suggest that it really was Godzilla. A Soviet sub is then reported as being destroyed, which leads the Soviets and Americans closer to nuclear war. Japan then decides to reveal that the attack was most likely Godzilla. The Japanese then meet with representatives of the US and Soviet leaders to discuss the use of nuclear weapons on Godzilla. The Japanese ban the use of nukes as there's no actual evidence that they could work on Godzilla, but they would most assuredly kill citizens and make cities uninhabitable. A nuclear power plant is then attacked by Godzilla. He does not destroy it, however, but merely pulls out the core and begins feeding on the radiation. Godzilla then leaves just as quickly as he arrived. A professor realizes in photos taken during the attack that Godzilla left after a flock of migrating birds flew over him. The professor then hypothesizes that Godzilla must have a homing signal in his brain similar to birds. The Soviets have an undercover nuclear vessel in the Tokyo harbor in case Godzilla shows up in the capital. Well, it just so happens that Godzilla shows up and begins attacking. The vessel is then damaged and an automatic satellite nuclear attack is launched, which the captain died trying to prevent. During Godzilla's rampage, the Super X aircraft is sent to kill him. The Super X uses cadmium shells in Godzilla's mouth, which slows down his heart, and he passes out. Meanwhile, the Americans agree to launch a missile to stop the Soviet nuke. It detonates above Japan, in which Godzilla then absorbs all the nuclear fallout and wakes up fully charged. He then relentlessly attacks the Super X, eventually destroying it. While all of this has been happening, the professor and a group of scientists have been setting up a beacon at Mount Nahara that can transmit the same bird homing signal that Godzilla followed earlier. They then activate it and Godzilla leaves for Mount Nahara. As Godzilla gets near the mouth of the volcano, bombs are then set off which cause the ground to fall from underneath Godzilla, and he is sealed within the volcano with an unknown fate. I think that the story is well balanced and much more realistic than most of the previous films in the Showa series. The characters are likable and interesting. Godzilla himself has a great redesign, seeming to take more cues from the original film to make him scary again. The problem is, however, that sometimes he doesn't look good. It almost seems as if he has a lazy eye at times. It's also painfully obvious when they use a puppet because the face is different and his teeth are skinnier and longer. Also, when they use the puppet, his arms usually just flail up and down and it looks really weird. There are also times where I feel that Godzilla is way too big, and other times where he is dwarfed by buildings surrounding him. It's really strange, and I'm glad that this was fixed in later films in the series. Godzilla's roar is also much closer to his original, and it's actually quite terrifying at times. Overall, if his face was fixed, I think this could be one of the best suits ever. The Super X, however, looks okay, I guess. I've never really been a huge fan of the Super X machines because their designs are always odd to me. This version looks like a flying submarine, which I don't like because I feel as if it should be in water and not in the air. An interesting note is that the US release of the film added Raymond Burr from the original US release of Godzilla King of the Monsters. He doesn't do much in the film other than be there for nostalgic reasons, but he does give a very interesting speech at the end. Also, they cut the film so that it looks like the Soviet missile was launched on purpose. This was, of course, because the Cold War was going on in real life, and the relations between the Soviets and the Americans wasn't so good. Overall, this is a great movie for Godzilla fans, and arguably non-Godzilla fans too. It has enough seriousness and silliness, although that's not intentional, to please casual viewers in my opinion. The story is well paced and scary at times, and the end is heartbreaking as Godzilla screams in terror of falling into the volcano, fearing his death. Of course, as I've previously said in this series, he survives because that's the main first plot of the sequel, Godzilla vs. Biollante. Well, that's all I have to say about this movie. Come back next time when the next movie gives us more information on Godzilla's origins. See you then.